Good day everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen and fellow shareholders. This is Gary Erlinger, the founder of GEM. The committee wants to thank you for joining us today. We are going to get into today what's transpired over the last week to 2 weeks. Very simply, we're not going to repeat a lot of the things that have transpired, but for the most part, we've been faced with and dealing with all the nonsense and malfeasance, as you're aware. And now a variety of unpleasantries from James Massa GLB and the illegal non-existent former board members who caused a situation in the last week to 2 weeks by publishing completely untrue, defamatory and slanderous statements which they will now pay for. We've had to overcome their nonsense over the last year. That we're all aware. Just so you're aware, this call is intended not only for the benefit of the shareholders, it's intended to send a message to our enemies who are also listening in on this call. Our lawyers have been busy writing up the 2 major lawsuits, and now they've added a third. A defamation, tortious interference, massive lawsuit that's being brought against them by our legal counsel for their frauds and illegal activities. After we won in Kentucky in December and they lost in court, they've resorted to desperate measures. At the end of the day, we're going forward as shareholders, and they're not. The past 2 weeks, Massa, Abe, GLB, former non-existent board of directors resorted to name-calling, slander, ridiculous lies and statements which we're going to go over right now. All I and the committee heard in the last 2 weeks was what's going on? And is this true? And how can they write this stuff if it is not true? That's what went through everybody's mind, and we're going to address that head on today. First, we're going to review their statements and then go through this in a very intellectual manner and put an end to this for the last time. My wife and friends and others keep asking me, why do you repeat yourself, Gary? And I say, because people sometimes forget. They wrote things that are completely not true. Things like there's a sentencing, there's a hearing and a court appearance on January 24th for sentencing by an SEC prosecutor. Once again, it's all lies. Their propaganda machine reared its ugly head. They attempt to confuse and deceive you with monstrous false statements which are now included in the defamation suit against them. They made several other blatantly false statements that were designed to mislead you and accomplish their malicious objectives. That's why they did this. Their objective is clear and they put it in writing. They want to stop us. They lost and we won and defeated them in the Kentucky court in December, and they have obviously become so desperate they're willing to do and say anything, no matter how untrue. Here are the facts. There was no court or hearing yesterday whatsoever. There is no court or hearing date on any court docket. There is no criminal matter before any court for any member of the committee, as they falsely stated in their emails. There is no such thing as an SEC prosecutor, as they falsely stated in their desperate efforts to mislead you. Their published statements are completely illegal, defamatory, and they are being brought to justice immediately. The theory and the definition of defamation are what they've done. The only defense to defamation is the truth, and none of what they wrote was true. Thursday I spoke with the SEC attorney and I confirmed for sure that there was nothing happening yesterday, Friday, January 24th, which they tried to mislead you that there was something really bad happening. Again, nothing happened. The SEC attorney was made aware that these falsehoods were published regarding a non-existing court date, including the word sentencing. The SEC attorney asked me, Gary, where did you get this information that there's a hearing? I advised him that James Massa and GLB and the other co-conspirators are publishing this in recent emails to investors of GEM. The SEC attorney was completely unaware of these publishings that they led you to believe was from the SEC. It was asked of you in the email, and I'll ask of you myself, what does that tell you? We all know what that tells you, and there are no other words to describe what they tried to do. It's because they are desperate people doing desperate things, and they know that the derivative suit and the federal securities fraud suit, that there is no escape for them. We're going to bring David Shutvet on as well. I'm going to go through this for the benefit of all of us so that we never forget. And we remember we're putting this to bed. So when you hear how could they do this when it's not true? I want you to remember the following. I want you to remember that. These are the same people who told you in a video, in September of 2018. James Massa stated, and I quote, "We have all the necessary elements and requirements and that the bankers are looking for to take us public," unquote. It's in the video that was provided to you in the emailbrary. These are the same people who stated in videos and recordings, and on webinars that we provided to you have them, he stated that, quote, "the cap table was done and complete," unquote. When in fact that was not true and extremely fraudulent and intentional. As we now know, they had no intention of doing the right thing. They formed GLB in January 2019, 1 year ago. Which was several weeks before they sought a secret bankruptcy that they fabricated on March 6th. How could they have stated that if it was not true? They did state that, and without a completed cap table. There could never ever have been an institutional investor, there could never have been an IPO, and they knew that a capitalization table, again, is a very simple breakdown of the percentage ownership by each shareholder and by the group. It is in a table showing the percentage of ownership in any company. Any investment bank or institutional investor wants to know what the percentage ownership is by the board members, the management, and the shareholders. They want to know that. A banker or institutional investor wants to know that every time they invest in any company, they want to know how much of the company or a percentage they're going to get for their investment, whether it's an institutional or out of an IPO. So without a cap table and without them providing you written documentation, and for the most part, we have confirmed that under Massa they did not provide the correct share counts. They could never have had a correct cap table. That was intentional. Which meant there could never have been a $3 million term sheet. Or any term sheet or an investment banker or any IPO. End of story. They knew it and they misled all of us. So when somebody says to me, "Gary, how could they have done that if it wasn't true?" You know the answer's very simple. They are who they are. These are the same people who told us the company was in rapid growth mode and the company can easily be a $600 to $800 million per year business, and then a week later sought for joint bankruptcy. All the while, Massa and GLB, and the board were accepting shareholder investments. So how could they have done that? I'm going to ask you that because that's what they're going to be asked. That's what they're going to be asked by the U.S. attorney in the criminal prosecution. These are the same people, and this was an ILL legal board, and WHO defied a U.S. magistrate's court order to revamp the board. They also stated that they were so impressed with the financial condition of the company in January of 2019, that they were going to fund the monthly expenses and payables for January, February and March leading up to the IPO. And that the first $100,000 was already in. This is all in writing. They did this all while they formed GLB at the same time, and then few weeks later they saw a fraudulent bankruptcy on March 6th. And that was a week after telling the company that we were in great shape and we were on the bridge of an IPO. We have all the documentation, and so do you all. Remember that? Yes, you do. So how could they have done all that and said that? These are the same people. Let's try one more. These are the same people who called Gem a diamond mine in February, remember? Your share of the diamond mine, of course you do. Then they had their little cartoon characters digging away in the diamond mine, conveying that we were moments away imminently from cashing in on the diamonds that we built. We were only inches away. Do you remember? Of course, you do. It was a setup concocted and fabricated by a partner who defrauded me, defrauded all of you. Work with any and boarding Massa to complete this. It's all documented now, so when I hear the same question I'm going to say to you, come on people, get real. The answer is obvious. These are the same people who stated to Ken Rogosinski in an email from Massa that we have in February, "This is time for you to double down." Then a week later they sought bankruptcy. These are same people who told Greta Archer that her investment in February 2019 would shortly be worth 3 to 4 times her investment in 1 month. That's what Massa told Greta Archer. These are the same people that in April, when James Massa sent to all of us another one of his emails, And this is 1 month after they sought bankruptcy without us knowing about it. That Massa and CFO Gordon Garrett were presenting a term sheet to a fund that was interested in investing millions of dollars and was referred to them by Jim Hock of Hanover International. All completely false. It was 1 month after seeking for bankruptcy. They had no cap table. They had no financials, and by the way, Gordon Gallery was no longer with the company in April, as he left to go back where he came from, where James Massa brought him in from Kentucky. And Mr. Garrett was not with the company in April when Mr. Massa stated in the email that he and Gordon Garrett were presenting a non-existent turnkey to a non-existent fund that Massa claimed was interested in investing in the company 1 month after seeking a fraudulent bankruptcy. They were straining us along at that point. These are the who did a completely bogus and sham deal with John Nimmo for $700,000 to artificially and fraudulently pad the debt. The same that Massa told you was manageable low monthly payments. And the rest gets taken out at the IPO. You all remember that? Of course you do. Check the GSAC library of emails. It's all going to court and they're doomed. They're desperate, as these are the same people who send emails to shareholders like Bob Bernard in April that Massa has layers of bankers, VCs, angel investors 1 month after they sought fraudulent bankruptcy, and Massa was thanking shareholders like Bob Bernard in emails from Massa, thanking them for investing. Would you like to speak with Bob Bernard or the other shareholders? You all have that opportunity. Bob is ready to testify against all of them. Greta Archer is ready to testify against all of them. We have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of shareholders ready to rock and roll in federal court in New York City. So when you ask how can they do this? You know the answer. You heard the last time in a conference call a recording of James Massa on the fraudulent May 14th vote. You all remember that they changed the phone numbers that day so that 90% of the shareholders could not participate in the sham vote, and then you heard in the last conference call the recording of James Massa stating at the end of the May 14th vote, along with Eddie and Matt, agreeing that the May 14th vote for the bankruptcy failed, fraudulent, concocted, fabricated bankruptcy. They wanted to run down our throats to steal our valuable technology. And then 2 days later they arbitrarily and capriciously just changed their minds, hysterically throwing out the vote, and then filed fraudulent bankruptcy in Kentucky after telling us they called for a July 2nd meeting which they never intended on having. Listen, this is all that it is. It is what it is. Let me say this about our good friend Joe Skrupets, who's one of the serial perpetrators. He got on a phone between May 1st and May 14th when the May 14th fraudulent vote took place. He got on a call with a bunch of us and he told all of us that he's a very smart CPA and that he was looking forward to losing his $1.1 million investment so that he could then receive the benefit of a $3,000 per year write-off at the age of 50. Yes, he actually did that. Then he did it again on the May 14th call. Turns out Joe is a member of GLB, which was formed in January. So there you go. Okay? The sinister secret company they formed to steal our very valuable technology. And by the way, Joe paid. We found this out from the actual fraudulent bankruptcy filing. Joe, who wasn't on the board, paid $50,000 out of his own pocket to pay for the fraudulent bankruptcy. Joe, you are a traitor to all the shareholders. That's what you are. You're a conspirator, and it goes on and on and on. Actually, at this point, it's both pathetic and very sad. We defeated their attempt to steal our very valuable assets. That's what we achieved. We had to go to war. We formed a committee. We had shareholders contribute to the legal fund to bring in the proper legal counsel, which we did to defeat them and move on. That's what we did. We get to move on and they don't, and they just can't stand it. So what do they want to point more fingers again at? Who? Yes, me. So the question, how can they write such stuff? And it's not true is answered. They are who they are and they're desperate. We are bringing the financial suit for restitution for what they have done. We know exactly everything they have done. They know we know that they know that we know. Everyone knows. We're bringing the federal securities suit for the shareholders and are doing that in New York City. Now they have earned a third and massive defamation suit, Let's call it a trifecta. I'm going to address two other points which I need to do to set the record straight. They published this, they're going to pay for it out of their pockets. On two other points, they publish and brought up. One is regarding my income and another an attempt to malign me regarding assets, the concocted falsehoods, and then I'll discuss with you my civil matter with the SEC. Briefly, so let's look at what they tried to or alluded to regarding my income. This very simple math. From 2012 to 2018, 7 years, my income averaged approximately $110,000 per year. The auditors in 2015 and 2016 had all the information from the bank accounts and they issued the audit in September of 2016. If there was anything improper they never would have issued the audit. I said that so many times and that's what they did. I had an agreement that allowed for up to $120,000 per year plus expenses. This is very simple math. So over 7 years that turned out to $100,000 per year. That's the math. On top of that, it turns out to be approximately 0.3% to 0.4% of the overall capital invested in the company, which was $15 million. That created an award-winning recognized technology. Kevin Jonas of the Jonas Brothers pursued us, signed a contract to represent the company as our celebrity influencer. That bought us about 500,000 downloads on average in a very quick period. If you don't know who the Jonas Brothers are, they're one of the most well-known popular musical celebrities in the world with hundreds of millions of followers and fans. They sought us out to be our influencers on social media, and the reason Kevin Jonas did that and sign a contract with us was because he knew that our technology was extremely valuable. Would he have done that if it wasn't extremely valuable to him? In fact, he told that to our investment bankers and in face-to-face meetings with them. Value, these are facts. And then, of course, we have Massa and Gordon Garrett and Eddie Huey and the board touting the incredible value on recordings and in PowerPoints and videos stating that this is a $600 million to $800 million per year business. And ladies and gentlemen and friends, you know that is the reason that Massa and the fraudulent GLP group did exactly what they did over the last year. Because they saw something incredibly valuable. They just wanted it for themselves. I said that before. Why 20 very smart and very wealthy people risk their personal fortunes like Joe Scurapitz. It's lying to you about getting a benefit of a $3,000 per year write-off, and he wanted to lose a $1.1 million investment, but we all know that's poppycock. We all know that's ridiculous, and we all know the truth. Now you all know the truth. Now, why would 20 very smart and very wealthy people risk going to jail over this? And go through all of this for what reason? Greed and stealing something very valuable. They proved it, and so did Kevin Jonas. So having said all that, I'm going to go back to my income for a second, ladies and gentlemen. My income turns out to be, if you look at it, 3 to 4% of $15 million over 7 years. $100,000 per year times 7 years equals 3 to 4% divided by 7 years and is equal to 0.05% per year of the capital invested in this company. They did insinuate and write that I stole money. They wrote that I stole money. Really? There's the math. So where is the problem? That's the bottom line. Massa, GLB and the fraudulent board of directors, I guess in their desperation and their anger or whatever it is, are going to take it out on me because we won, and I guess I'm an easy target. I'm the easy target, so let's go after him. So now let's discuss one more egregious, outlandish lie and defamation that they cannot escape from. They published that the rental property that the company was renting for both personal and business use, the rental that I lived in for 2 years. They published falsely and with complete defamation that the investors' funds, the company's funds, went into buying a home that is now on the market, which is for sale by the owner. Well, I'm not the owner, neither is Jem. Neither was anyone I know or that I'm related to own that rental property. While it may be for sale by the owners, who again is not I or the company or anyone related to me in any manner, shape or form. And by the way, again the auditors know this because they went through everything. And the SEC knows that because everything was turned over to the SEC. Massa, Abe, Eddie, and the board knew this because they had all the information, but yet they tried to mislead you, to point fingers at me because they want to harm our going forward business relationship. That is why they did this. That's exactly why they did it. Remember, the SEC attorney was surprised to hear that there was a hearing yesterday. He asked me, "Where did you get that information from, Gary?" I said to him, James Massa and GLB published it in a recent email to the GEM investors. He was completely unaware of any of this. They even tried to make it look like it was coming from the SEC. They have a lot to account for in federal court. And at the end of the day, these are outright intentional, unbelievable slanders and lies and untruthful defamations which you know. As we all now know what's going to happen, so let's move on to the last item, so that we can call this a day. As for the matter of the number of $240,000 that they put into one of the emails as part of my income and is a civil matter between the SEC and myself. My income was $100,000 per year over 7 years out of $15 million that was invested in this company. My income averaged out to be 0.05% per year of the total invested capital. I am disputing the matter with the SEC, but I've expressed with them. In fact, I advised everyone I met with them on January 2nd and we discussed the whole Massa GLB fraud. They received all the information and I've been in contact with them in an attempt to resolve this, and while I have asked them for their basis and rationale, I am disputing this and it is based on my facts. I am looking forward to resolving this personal civil matter. There's nothing to do with our valuable technology. It is nothing more. That's what I am doing with the SEC. I'm in the process of resolving that with them and I look forward to doing that. So, at the end of the day, that's where we are. That is why the committee pursued the restitution it has following the massive frauds and the investigations that the committee and our lawyers have done, and our lawyers are moving forward very quickly. On that note, I'd like to bring in David Shutvet. Thank you, Gary, and fellow shareholders. Thanks for being on this call today and have joined our group to bring justice to the fraudulent acts caused by James Massa GLB and the board. A lot is going on with our company and our new technology, but now is not the time to disclose confidential information. Now that our legal contribution funding is closed, we are requesting confidentiality from all those that have joined our group. We have hundreds of shareholders who have chosen to protect their investment going forward, and we are currently reviewing all contacts and emails to make sure those who joined will keep our information confidential. We will not tolerate any spies within our group disclosing or forwarding any of our personal conference call information emails to anyone associated with James Massa and the GLB group. Now that we have entered the litigation phase, we need to be assured by all shareholders that the information we provide is kept confidential. We are aware that there are shareholders who have contributed to the litigation fund and are also in contact with Massa and the GLB group. They are acting as spies. Warning to our spies within our group. If anyone on this call or future calls discloses any confidential information to the other group, we will find out and you will be permanently removed from our secure email list. And you will receive what Massa and the board gave you: worthless shares. We are requesting anyone that has sent confidential information to the Massa group to either call or email someone within our contact list and disclose what you have provided and what Massa and group have promised you. In return, our committee will then decide if you can be trusted going forward. Any co-conspirators that have joined them will face legal retribution. To anyone that followed the requests of the fake non-existent GEM board who requested shareholders to send an email to the SEC attorney Donnelly, we are in contact with him and are attempting to get copies of those emails he received. We will learn who you are and will take action against you. To those that join our group and can promise their confidentiality, our GEM Shareholder Action Committee members are shareholders like you. We are working hard to turn this into a new, very successful company that all shareholders can be proud of. Thanks for your time, and back to you, Gary. Thank you, David. For the most part, What David is stating to you comes from your fellow shareholders, including the committee. They're speaking from the heart, and we know that the Massa Group will stoop to any level. There are things that I'm not going to disclose on this call that they have done which is so totally despicable. We can talk about it at another time, but the authorities are involved. They just do not want to see us go forward, they just can't hack it. But we are, and they are facing their just due in various courts with the trifecta that they have earned. We have them on the defamation suit. I wouldn't want to be them, and we get to move on. This was their choice. This was their doing. It is what it is. So if they come up with any more fiction, just refer back to today and the replay of this call and all the library. There's 54 or 55 emails of absolute valid substantiation of all of their frauds that you could just sit down and thumb through. It all there. You don't have to ask how could they do whatever, how could they do this if it's not true. It's because they're liars and they are criminals and they are who they are. They're desperate and we get to move on. If you have any questions about what they've just done or anything, I'd be more than happy to speak to anyone about anything. You know where to find me or even reach me. I'd be more than happy to discuss the facts on our journey. You can at any time email committee@gemshareholders@gmail.com. You can call Patricia Gilchrist at 9412765290. Or contact Trevo at 51650911848. We've done the right thing and we continue to do the right thing. That's the bottom line. Our attorneys are taking the action to court, and that is where we are. The new company is moving forward. You will hear more from the new management and board of directors, who are people involved with me, and they're great people. They're busting their butt and it's extremely exciting. That concludes our call today, folks. Thank you for your participation. Have a great day, night.